Welcome back to Coast Comic Convention. I'm Kevin White here right now with one of my favorite writers, Kieron Gillen, who, if you don't know his work, let me just give you a quick rundown. Titles like The Wicked and the Divine and Phonograph for Image. If you've read Marvel, you've read a ton of his stuff. Uncanny X-Men, Invincible, Iron Man. We're talking Beta Ray Bill, God Hunter. Series I enjoyed so much. Journey into Mystery, but you may know him. A lot of you may know him from his recent works with the Darth Vader series and Dr. Aphra. Kieron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
It is our pleasure. How are you, first off? Let's start with there.
I'm really good. It's in Britain, so I've finished my work for the day. I'm relaxing. Nothing could be better.
All right. Well, I want to start off with some works that are coming down the pipe that you have going on. It just announced Star Wars Screaming Citadel. What can you tell us about that?
It's just exciting. And we want, basically, me and Jason, we've worked together since the X-Men. And we've done like one Star Wars crossover before, which was kind of Vader Down. And
that was a great series.
We really, you know, Vader versus an Imperial army. And at least for this, it's always kind of thing like when you do the crossover, you want to make it a really big story that people can get. You know, and like if you haven't read any of the comics, you get the high concept and why you want to read it. And with Vader Down, it was Darth Vader versus a rebel army. And that, you know, that's kind of like, you know, like you get that. I could explain that to my mum and she'd go to see that movie. And this is almost flipping it around a bit, as in this is kind of like taking Star Wars and putting it into a slightly different genre. This is basically a whole Star Wars story. We basically, you know, we take Luke and the whole cast and Aphra and we dump them in a very sinister space station at the top of the hill with a weird village beneath it. So we're kind of doing gothic horror. So we're not even like doing aliens or anything, you know, that kind of space horror. We're doing a pretty much Star Wars take on gothic horror. And that's kind of an enormous rush. If you see the designs by Marco online, they're astounding, resplendent things. So that's kind of quite the fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. When does that come out?
I've literally, sorry, my brain has forgot. May. I would have to look it up. I believe it's May. The solicits are just coming out now. All
right. So now let's talk about the Dr. Aphra character for a second. She has caught on, become so popular. Did you see that happening at all?
I thought basically I had like a 10-year plan for world domination, and obviously it's been the delight and surprise. You make up characters and you kind of hope people like them, and especially when you're putting something into as loved as Star Wars is, you know, you don't want to put a character in which people don't like, because you know with Luke and Han and Leia and Chewbacca and the droids, and so when people come to a Star Wars book, that's what they're there for. So for people to actually like Aphra enough to get her own book, that's astounding, you know. In fact, she's in a video game now. You know, that's amazing.
Is she really?
Yeah, it's like the new mobile like battle arena game that she's like Vader's sidekick, which is great.
Oh, nice. Now, okay, let's just piggyback on that real quick. Do you see down the road for her being included in some movies or the TV?
You know, basically Lucasfilm. It's all they have the story group and that connects everything, and they're so good at basically tying everything together. So it's like the reason I mentioned, you know, Aphra turning up in one of the games, and in fact, 000 and BT have turned up in a board game. You know, and they do a lot of this kind of connectivity stuff. So you never know, but I don't know anything about it. But let's be honest, if I knew about it, I wouldn't tell you.
So when writing for the Star Wars universe, what is it like writing in that? How much constriction do you have, or they pretty much free reign with what they let you do to a point?
I mentioned the story group are amazing, and they are the keepers of the Holy Grail, if you will. You know, they're like the people, they say what's canon, and they try to make sure all this entire timeline is straight. You know, it's got this straight solidity to it. But the flip of that, so in other words, there's limits. And for me, it's like writing historical fiction. You know, what you do is you research the period and you go, okay, what could have happened here? You know, and you can't and there's things you can't do, and there's also things you wouldn't do. Right. Like in the case of when I was doing Darth Vader, it's like really watched A New Hope, really watched Empire. Okay, what happens to Vader between? You know, he discovers he has a son. He has to regain his, you know, I looked at it and unpack. And I was never going to do a story that didn't tell that. You know what I mean? Because that's the job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say, Rogue One's doing a similar thing in that kind of, okay, let's do a historical story that inserts perfectly into the timeline. And that's kind of, you know, that's the thrill as well. Because as much as I like pop music, I was never going to pitch, you know, Darth Vader's Disco Adventures. You know, people come to Darth Vader for Darth Vader-y things, and that's kind of like the whole thing. You want to be. I often describe writing stories as like playing the blues. They're these big, iconic stories, and like there's books like Wicked Divine or Phonogram where I'm being very experimental. And Star Wars, it's like I make everything to try to make it feel like Star Wars. That's the aesthetic aim. And even like the Screaming Citadel, where like the idea is, okay, we're going to do a gothic horror story, but we wanted to make it feel like Star Wars at the same time. You know, and of course, you know what I mean? That you always kind of
that's going to be quite a jumble right there. Do that. That's,
you know, but if you think about it, I mean, look at Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars has so many bits and pieces. You know, it has like the samurai movies in. You know, it has westerns in, and it's already a kind of genre, and it's held together by the tone. If you get the tone right and move it correctly, I think you can nail that. You know what I mean? It's a very resilient universe.
That's fantastic. Now, have you ever written anything in the Darth Vader and Dr. Aphra that Lucasfilm went, no, you can't do that because of?
That's right. There's certainly things we've pitched. You know what I mean? It's like that's like, how to phrase it? Especially like the early ways we pitched. We pitched stuff expecting to be told no.
Right.
As in, like, you ask this because you don't get if you don't ask. So when you're like starting, you kind of like push it. You know, you pitch and you're okay with stepping back, and that's fine because you want to see where the boundaries are. That's part of the process. But I mean, the flip of it is how generous they are there with ideas. I mean, something I do with the story group, which I don't do anywhere else, is there'll be a scene where it's a crime scene, and I said I can completely make up a crime boss at this point. You got anyone else in the universe you think might be fun here? So in other words, it's that kind of, they're very generous with ideas in terms of, oh, there's this one thing that was referenced 5 years ago. You could use that. Or there's this senator we had lying around. And so in other words, anyone who actually follows the whole Star Wars thing, they see the story group moving all the pieces. And that makes it kind of an incredibly coherent universe. So you know what I mean? As in, people always ask about the no's, but they rarely ask about the yeses. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's like there's a lot of there's some really soft tie-ins to like Rogue One in Dr. Aphra. And that was kind of from the story group suggestion. You know what I mean? They said, oh, that would be quite cool if you make, you know, Tolvan, who is my kind of evil, well, obviously evil, it's Imperial officer who's hunting Dr. Aphra. And she's got a connection to Edu, which is one of the planets in terms of the break. You know what I mean? So that came from the story group. So it's kind of, it's give and take in that way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a hell of a job.
So I'm going to switch gears just real quick because also in May you have coming out James Bond.
Yes, which is exciting. Yeah.
How do you make that jump? You went from one of the biggest villains in movie history to one of the biggest movie heroes. That's a huge leap.
It's kind of it's the book James Bond, and James Bond always has a nasty side, especially in the books. You know, he's cold. There's always that kind of. I like to think he's an icon. I kind of said this. I'm not really doing much work behind. All I'm doing is Star Wars now. And when Dynamite came to me, it's like I've wanted to work with Nicky and Dynamite forever, and I've never found a chance. And he said, "Well, how about a one-off James Bond thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, sit down, do meet special-sized James Bond one-off. That'll be fun." And it's been great. I mean, I had to really sit down and work in it because it's well out my wheelhouse. Like I've written little bits of spy fiction before, but not in real. It's like either fantasy or science fiction, spy fiction, which of course is very different. And here it's like I end up like researching the origins of MI5, which is MI6, which is like the British sort of spy system. So I was searching World War II spies, and I've ended up doing a story which is kind of like harking back to where Britain has come from, where Britain has ended up. So it's very much like a state of a nation, James Bond. And, you know, when he drinks his martinis and shoots people, you know. You said earlier, it's like writing Darth Vader or writing Luke or Han or any of the big Marvel heroes. You know them, but at the same time, you want to make them yours. And that's kind of always the job when you're a work for hire writer, in terms of like finding, I said earlier, the blues, you know, in terms of you're playing this song which people know and they want to hear your take on it, or they still want to hear that song. You know, that's how I think about those things. I mean, Warren Ellis used to describe writing superhero comics as cover versions. You know, and like, you know, there's some really good.
In the best possible way, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some fantastic cover versions, and that's kind of like a way I think about it as well.
Oh, that's very cool.
There's always a music metaphor.
I've got a couple of questions from our viewers. Matthias Lewis writes in, music and culture seem to weigh heavily influence on your work. What influences did that have with writing Star Wars?
Well, Star Wars is music culture. You know what I mean? So I think, like, with Star Wars, I was very aware that I was writing this monomyth, and and it's like I always say it was the first movie Empire was the first movie I saw in the cinema. So I was essentially writing the prequel to my own entry into geek culture. You know what I mean? And that's like that's a weird, like, Grant Morrison kind of like thing. So tell you what, music is a relatively small influence, apart from the major guiding thing with Star Wars is I said earlier, the making it feel like Star Wars.
Right.
The guiding thing, and of course that includes music, because ideally you're trying to evoke the sound effects and music just by the way you write. Like, the bit where the Imperial March drops.
Yes. You're in your head as you're reading it.
There is actually a Dr. Aphra soundtrack. I kind of often do soundtracks to my books on my Spotify account. Like the Wicked playlist is like over 300 songs long. It's ludicrous. But there's a Dr. Aphra playlist, which is about 40-50 records, and so I often have that on shuffle. And that's kind of it's not about getting the mood. So it's with Dr. Aphra, it's kind of the same with almost all my books. I'll work out, okay, what's this book about? How does this book feel? And I select a bunch of records that kind of evoke that vibe. So yeah, I'm going to call it up and give you some examples of what's on this playlist. Actually, I'll do it with this one.
All right.
Sorry about this.
That's all right. I noticed you have a yearly playlist on your blog. 2016, 2015, your playlists. How's this year's playlist going along?
I tell you, it's slowly coming together. As in, like, it's a bit busier than last year's. Here we go. 39 songs currently on my Dr. App. The first one is Frontier Psychiatrist by the Avalanches, which is the kind of gets the weirdness of the book. There's a lot of Joan Jett in here. Be Your Own Pet, Shot by Both Sides by Magazine is in there. Ghosts by Ladytron, which Ghost has this lyric in the middle. It's just something I want to say I'm sorry doesn't mean I'm sorry, which is a very Afro sentiment.
Yes.
Roik stops the girl and the robot, which is very much that's obvious. Some I can't say. Debaser by the Pixies is in there. Back in Black. Yeah, all manner of stuff. Wave of Mutilation, which is obviously a 000 song. Rehab by Amy Winehouse. Cool Thing by Sonic Youth. Oh yeah,
playlist. That's an awesome playlist.
Space Carnival by this jazz band in London called The Comet Is Coming. I think they're in London anyway. But Space Carnival, dig that out on Spotify. It is amazing.
All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. I got one more question here from Benjamin Harrell, who writes, when creating a new book, do the characters present themselves first, or do they sort of manifest according to the story that's being written?
That's a really complicated question. I mean, you mentioned that one to me earlier, and I haven't got a good answer, because the answer is yes. As in, all those options happen every single time. And there's some characters I can completely describe the origin, and you kind of get the iconic bit of them. You know, with Dr. Aphra, I was walking around for the first meeting with Lucasfilm. I was going around the building, and we were passing an Indiana Jones prop, and I found myself looking at him thinking, because I was trying to, I knew that if I was going to make new characters, I need to surround Darth with new people to interact with, and they've got to be weird and likable and kind of carry themselves, but they've also got to be archetypal, because Star Wars is about powerful, direct archetypes. And I was passing Indiana Jones, and I went, gender switch Indiana Jones and make him evil, right. And that's the core. And Aphra's grown from that, and Aphra's got other bits and pieces, and she fits in the universe in different ways. But the core idea of rogue archaeologist causing trouble, that's what Aphra is. And Inspector Fainoff, who was like a character introduced in Darth Vader, who is the genius detective, but an Imperial, as in he believes in the Empire entirely. So he's evil, but he's evil in a cold, calm, collected. I think this is the best. But he's Sherlock Holmes. He's every single person who solves puzzles, but happens to be for the Empire. So that's an example of that. But all the characters kind of like quite often come from that nugget, and sometimes it's more often it's the minor characters who kind of come from the actual purpose of the story, and that kind of, I need a crime lord, now I'll make up a crime lord. I mean, like, you know, that kind of thing. You know, like, people ask me with Wicked Divine, where they've got all these gods, you know, did the gods come first, or the pop star, or like what? And the answer is always kind of a bit of both. And it's kind of, you kind of cast the god or first, or cast the pop star first. But quite often it's more like, okay, what's this character really saying? In the case of Wick Div, the idea of these 12 gods sort of intersect and basically create a statement of what life is for, which is, you know, me in full pretentious mode. But, you know, and that kind of, I could probably describe the central dilemma of all the characters in a sentence. And that's kind of, but there's so much other than that as well to them. So
right.
Yeah, you know, you sort of, you know your characters when you find them, and it's kind of like you discover them. That's the thing. The more you write, the better you get at them, and you kind of realize. Like, I almost like Loki, and Loki was the first character I did really well for Marvel, I think. And Loki was always, and I started him for JMS, taking over from JMS, and I was like, okay, you know, I did a perfectly acceptable Loki. And it was all about, I kind of read it as basically daddy issues. That's all I kind of wrote. And clever guy, complicated, got some issues.
Yeah.
But then I kind of, the more I wrote it, the more I became interested in the weird philosophy of it. And that kind of, you know, he's a chaos god, but he's completely and utterly predictable. And that would drive him mad. And my character became much more about, I want to create my own destiny, and I just can't. I'm trapped in this. And that kind of, you know what I mean? As in, the more you wrote him, the more I got better at him, and the more layers you get, and the more solid your characters appear.
Right.
And the thing is, there's so much you can do, all this sort of planning. What you're saying is like designing. There's so much, for me, there's a question, you can over-plan a character because you discover so much more on the page, and there will be things that surprise you. I mean, I kind of, in Wick Div, I realised a sexual detail of a character as I was writing it last issue. And I did, you know, that kind of thing. And it's, oh yeah, they would be into that. And that was a surprise to me as everyone else. So yeah, it's an interesting job. Like, it's basically, you know, it's kind of like tarot reading, and it's kind of like you have these symbols and you arrange them in shapes, and you're all making it up.
Well, Kieron, thank you for your time. We're out of time, but it's been so much fun talking to you.
No,
thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I look forward to your next project.
Cool. I'll see you on. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thank you.